March 1st, 2026, part 2 of 17.9, Moral Rectitude and Healthy Economy. 17.9e, retaining freedom from acquiring wealth. 17.9f, dual freedom of the community, the Sangha. And 17.9g, summary from page 1641 to page 1657, part 2, Buddha Dhamma. Compiled by Somdet Prat Butta Gosa Charya, English name pa2. 17.9 E. Refraining freedom from acquiring wealth. Apart from developing awareness that the material wealth is not worthy goal in itself, but is merely means for enhancing one's own and others' lives, a person should know the limitation of wealth and recognize the needs in search of something of greater value. As described in the following passages: action, knowledge, and righteousness, moral conduct, and excellent life. By these are beings purified, not by family lineage or wealth. I see wealthy men in the world who through greed share not their wealth. They hoard away their riches, longing for heightened sensual pleasures. A king who has conquered the earth and rules over the land, stretching to the ocean, is yet unsated with the sea's near shore, and hungers for its further shore as well. Most other people too, not just kings, meet death with craving unabated. Thus impaired, they abandon their corpse. Satisfaction with sensuality is not found in this world. Relatives lament and untie their hair, cry, "Oh, me, at last, our beloved is dead." They bear away the body wrapped in a shroud to place it on the funeral pyre and burn it there. Clad in a single shroud, the deceased leaves his wealth behind. The undertaker prods him with stakes as he burns up in the funeral pyre. And as he dies, no relatives, no friends can offer him shelter or refuge here. While his heirs carry away his wealth, this being pass on according to his actions. And as he dies, no riches can follow him, not child, nor wife, nor wealth, nor estate. Longevity is not acquired with wealth, nor can prosperity banish old age. Short in this life, as all the sages say, eternity is, it knows not, only change. The rich and the poor alike experience contact of the senses. The fool and the sage are equally affected. But while the fool lies stricken by his folly, no sage will ever tremble from impingement. Better is wisdom here than any wealth, since by wisdom one gains the final goal. The vital part for engaging a sama ajiva, right livelihood, is sipa, vocational knowledge, expertise, and skill. The Dipitaka emphasizes the study of arts, crafts, and sciences, and maintains that one duty of parents is to provide practical education for their children. Volitional knowledge on its own, however, is limited. The Dipitaka therefore also highlights great learning, Bahu Satcha. Having heard much or studied extensively, so that one recognizes the greater application of practical knowledge, is able to assist others effectively. Develops comprehensive knowledge, especially knowledge leading to samatiti, right view, which is the key factor for the true study. The Dipitaka also encouraged people to train in sila, moral discipline, so that they can apply their practical skills honestly and conduct themselves in a way that is beneficial to others and to society. Another skill that is encouraged is to know how to speak effectively. These other forms of knowledge complement vocational knowledge and increase a person's ability to help others. The level of virtuous conduct according to the following teachings by Gautama Buddha. Great learning, expertise in highly trained moral discipline, and well-spoken speech. These are the supreme blessings. Work not piled up and unattended to. This is the supreme blessing. Blameless activity. This is the supreme blessing. There are numerous passages in the Dipitaka, the Pali Canon, encouraging the study of arts and sciences. Take the example of a person lacking knowledge of arts and sciences earns a living with difficulty. Teach your children practical knowledge. Study that which is worthy of study. Whatever is called knowledge of arts and sciences lead to the good fortune. Every branch of knowledge worthy of study, whether lofty, low, or medial, should be analyzed and understood. One need not apply all this knowledge at once. Someday the time will come when this knowledge comes to one's aid. On the subject of the supreme blessing, proficiency in the area of formal scholastic knowledge, Bahu Satcha, should be accompanied by practical skill. A person should possess both knowledge and practical expertise. If these two qualities are paired with one, can expect excellence from the person's work. Even greater success can be expected if a person is also well disciplined and skilled speaker, is able to use speech to induce understanding to others or to bring about cooperation in the communal harmony. With these factors are combined with well-organized, well-executed, wholesome work, a person's work will reach perfection. Because some people may become overly absorbed in gaining knowledge and attending to the work to the point of neglecting their family's responsibility. Gautama Buddha included two additional blessings at the beginning of the passage of looking at one's parents and supporting one's wife and children. When a dakinaya pugala, one worthy of respect, the noble disciple has fulfilled all personal responsibilities, Gautama Buddha encouraged them to consider the responsibility to other people to further develop virtue and participate in upholding righteousness of all human beings. Gautama Buddha thus included these three more blessings at the end of the passage. Support one's relatives, nati sanghaha, of widespread giving, dana, and righteous conduct, dhamma chariya. To conduct oneself in line with these principles to earn one's livelihood with rectitude, Buddhism admits to conform the necessity of material things, especially for the four requisites of life, as seen, for example, of Gautama Buddha's exhortation. All beings exist by way of food. Sape sata ahara titika. All beings exist by way of food. The true value of material things, however, is connected to moderation and determined by how they foster a healthy and natural physical state. Of physical strength and ease, freedom from illness, and the absence of danger from either privation or excess, and by how they should support a person's work in cultivation of spiritual qualities. The value of material things is also determined by social conditions and by personal factors. By one's level of wisdom and the ability to recognize the advantages and disadvantages, the limitations and the material things, and by one's ability to experience forms of bliss more refined than the happiness derived from material objects. For this reason, Buddhism is not interested in compelling people to distribute material wealth equally, as this does not guarantee the people's virtuous and happiness. Rather, it emphasizes the minimum requirement that all people possess an adequate amount of the four requisites in order to survive without too much difficulty, and that possessions of material objects not be the cause for oppressing oneself or others. The Buddhist teaching also recognizes that possession and consumption of material things is related to a person's spiritual maturity and development. A person less spiritually developed will desire material objects for gratification and depend on material things for happiness more than a person of greater spiritual development. A spiritual decline occurs when people forget the proper relationship between material wealth. The need for material things become a misguided search for gratification and an addiction to sensual pleasure. Until people forget that material well-being is the foundation for generating superior spiritual qualities. As a consequence, people often abuse others out of selflessness. Alternatively, an attachment and enslavement to material wealth give rise to possessiveness and anxiety until people are unwilling to spread it or use it for the beneficial purpose, which harms both themselves and others, and is another form of affliction. Even more extreme behavior occurs when disappointment and disillusionment about worldly objects turns into aversion, and one sets oneself in opposition to the world. One thus creates deliberate hardships for oneself by following an extreme degree of austerity or being caught up in the practices of self-mortification in order to escape the power of material things. On the surface, these practices resemble living simply and keeping one's material needs to a minimum. It is incorrect, however, to consider these practices as ways leading to liberation, vimutti or vimok, or to undergo ascetic practices without applying a deep understanding. One should recognize that in the endeavor for liberation, people must rely to a necessary degree on material things in order to live with wisdom and compassion, panya and karuna. A life that is free and not overly dependent on material things implies not being seduced, blindly absorbed, or spellbound by these things. This freedom relies on liberation, nitsarana panya, and on a thorough discernment of the disadvantages and failings of material things. Atitnavatasavi. So the failings of material things, that's the negative aspect of it. The positive aspect would be asata dasavi. But the negative is atitnavatasavi. A wise person sees the many disadvantages of pleasurable sense objects and of material things. Take the example. One can easily become enslaved by them. One may rely on them entirely for one's happiness. They do not necessarily lead to higher spiritual qualities, like a peace of mind. And when one is attached to them, they even become an obstacle to realizing these higher states. Moreover, nevertheless, you see, by their very nature, these things are void of an inherent perfection which would be able to truly gratify our desires and prove satisfaction. They are impermanent, unstable, transcendent. Anika. So the titlakana anika ta dukkha ta ta anatta ta. They cannot be truly owned. They are not truly subject to our control. And in the end, they must break up and dissolve. To relate to these things with avijja, ignorance, is to create grief and dukkha, grief and suffering. They were not born along with us, and when they died, they do not follow us. The purpose of seeking and owning these things is to use them for solving problems and alleviating dukkha, suffering, and for the development of sukha, true happiness, not to increase our suffering. There is no merit to hoarding up wealth. The more one is enslaved to wealth, the greater is one's affliction. When one recognizes the above truths, one derives the true value from material wealth, spends money to benefit oneself and others, and to cultivate the four favorable qualities. Sangha Vatu. The example here is by giving, by establishing a society that guards against wrongdoing, promotes virtue and encourages spiritual development, and by supporting those people who uphold the truth. One does not possess wealth solely to increase wealth, nor does one generate wealth simply to consume more and to seek self-gratification. Buddhism holds to a high esteem for those lay people, upaso, upasika, who work and with diligence obtain wealth through honest means, are charitable, and take responsibility for others, spend their money on wholesome causes. Such people are referred to as victors in this world and the next. Even more excellent than those people freed through wisdom from mental defilements, kilesas, or their taints, their asavats. Emphasis on mental defilement, who do not fall victim to wealth or to personal possessions, who do not allow the acquisition of wealth to be a source of woe, who are able to live with joyful heart, who come into contact with worldly things but are not stained by them, and who are able to disengage from the suffering when it arises in various circumstances. These are true masters, Isara Jana, the true liberated ones. Siri Pukala. Such people may be awakened up to the stage of non-returner and anagami. Yet, or non-returner, that's arihat. Yet they are fully attentive to and engaged in their work. Gautama Buddha did not approve of upaso, upasika, the lay people being concerned only with the immediate needs or desires out of preparation for the future or by the abandonment of their duties, which can be a form of attachment to non-attachment. 17.9F, dual freedom for the community, the Sangha. The monatistic community, the Sangha, acts as an exemplar to people for life relying to the least degree on material things, for life with the greatest degree of freedom from material things. This life is connected to the wider society in the following ways. First, the monastic life provides an opportunity for monks to live a life of simplicity. Second, this life allows monks to devote their time and energy to the Dhamma-related activities without needing to get caught up in seeking material possession. Third, this life urges monks to be at ease to support or easy to support, but recognizing that they do not earn a living by themselves and are dependent on the lay community. And fourth, the monastic community, by not seeking recompense for this labor in a usual sense of a market exchange, is as free as possible from the control and the influence by the mainstream social and political system in which it finds itself. All monks, regardless of whether they are enlightened or not, are bound by the principles of living primarily for the truth and keeping their material needs to a minimum. Gautama Buddha did not intend for lay people to live monastic or austere lives, nor did he wish for everyone to be ordained as a monk. It is a natural causal truth that at any time, different people abide at different stages of spiritual development. And when they will have various needs and desires, even the majority of stream interests, Sotapanna, the majority of them, or at least a large percentage of them, live at home with their families. Gautama Buddha's intention in this respect was most likely to establish an independent community within a wider society in order to act as the balance in the domain of righteousness and truth, to sustain the principles of truth within society, and to provide an escape from the controlling influence of society for those people who both desired and were prepared for such freedom. The community, the Sangha, exists both in physical form and as in an ideal. The independent community as a physical entity is the Bhikkhu Sangha, sometimes referred to the conventual Sangha, Samadhi Sangha, which exists alongside as free from the wider lay community. The independent community as in ideal to the community of true disciples, Savaka Sangha, sometimes referred to the noble community, Arya Sangha, which exists along with the wider community of unawakened beings. The gist of this principle is that the model society is not one in which everyone is the same. Such a society is impossible to accomplish, but rather is one in which all members, although they may differ in individual circumstances, are devoted to spiritual growth, live together in concord, and strive for the same goal. Such a model provides a wholesome alternative to those people who no longer live to wish within the confines of the wider society. Even in the future era, the Maitreya Buddha, during which time supposedly everyone is equal, there will be an independent community of monks. In regard to the Bhikkhu Sangha, for the monks to dwell in and maintain such independence, they must have a way of life that relies little on material things. Moreover, nevertheless, you see, they possess mental qualities that are favorable to such way of life. And an important quality to Gautama Buddha emphasizes for bhikkhus and for all renunciants is contentment, santosa, which enable ones to live simply and to experience joy independent of material things. The monks need not expend time, effort, and attention on acquiring material things. Instead, they can fully devote their time, determination, effort, and attention to their spiritual practice in order to achieve wisdom and freedom of mind. The principles of contentment and delight in the practice and that are embodied in Gautama Buddha's teaching are fourfold traditional practice of the noble ones, Arya Vamsa, the four principles of the noble lineage. The bhikkhus follow a simple lifestyle and do not engage in arts and sciences in order to earn a living. By relying on the ancient traditions, they subsist on four requisites offered by the lay community. At that time, they had no right to solicit food or the other requisites. For this reason, they can make themselves easy to support and content with little, and conform to the four principles of the noble lineage. Here, a monk in this teaching and training consists with any kind of robe, and he speaks in praise of contentment with any kind of robe. He does not engage in wrong search in what is improper for the sake of a robe. If he does not get a robe, he is not agitated, and if he gets one, he uses it without being tied to it, infatuated with it, or obsessed with it. He sees the danger in it, understanding its escape, yet because of this, he does not extol himself or disparage others. Any monk who is skilled in this, energetic, not remiss, clearly comprehending and mindful, is said to be dwelling in an ancient, pristine, noble lineage. Further, a monk is content with any kind of alms food he receives. Furthermore, a monk is content with any kind of lodging he receives. Furthermore, a monk finds delight, dependent of wholesome qualities, is delight with the development of wholesome qualities. Find delight in the banning of unwholesome qualities, is delighted with the banning of unwholesome qualities. Yet because of this, he does not extol himself or disparage others. Any monk who is skilled in development of pavana and abandonment of pahana, energetic, not remiss, clearly comprehending and mindful, is said to be dwelling in the ancient, pristine, noble lineage. Qualities like contentment corresponds to the discipline and moral conduct of the Bhikkhu Sangha. The moral code for the bhikkhus was prescribed in order to foster contentment in the monks and to support them in the dedication to cultivating wholesome qualities and abandoning unwholesome qualities. Commentaries classify 4 aspects of sila, moral conduct of the monastic sangha, which are collectively referred as parisuddhi sila, moral conduct leading to purity, or pure behavior designated as moral conduct. The first one is the patimokkha sila, morality as restraint in regard to the patimokkha, to abstain from forbidden conduct, to adhere to the permissible forms of conduct, and to practice strictly in regard to the training rules. The commentators claim that this factor is accomplished by way of faith. Second, indriya samvara sila, morality as sense restraint is to be careful of not to allow evil, unwholesome mind states like desire and attachment, aversion and indignation to overpower the mind when receiving the 6 sense objects. When the eye sees forms, when the ear hears sounds, when the nose smells odors, when the tongue savors tastes, when the body experiences tactile sensation, when the mind cognizes mental objects. The commentators claim that this factor is accompanied by mindfulness, sati. The third one is ajivara parisuddhi sila, morality and purity of livelihood, to earn one's living righteously in a pure manner, to avoid seeking gain by incorrect means, not to falsely claim supernormal states like concentration of attainment or stages of enlightenment, not to verbally appeal for food for one's self if one is not ill, to abstain from deception, for example, by affecting a severe manner of continence in order to instill faith in the lay people and to induce them to offer the 4 requisites, to abstain from flattery in order to gain food, to abstain from hinting in order to obtain the requisites, to abstain from resorting to threats, disparagement, or, as to urge to lay people to offer the requisites, and to obtain from pursuing gain with gain. The example by giving someone a small gift with the hope that he will offer much in return. The commentators claim that this factor is accompanied by way of effort. The fourth is pachaya sana sita sila, morality connected to the 4 requisites. To use the 4 requisites with wise consideration by understanding their true purpose and value, to refrain from using them without greed. One eats food in order to nourish and strengthen the body, to live at ease, and to be able to perform one's duties, and to advance in the threefold training, the Ditso Sika. One does not eat for sense gratification, entertainment, or amusement. Commentators claim that the factors is accompanied by way of panya. And finally, 17.9 G, the summary. In the context of the lay community, there are several forms of conduct that should be emphasized in relation to personal wealth. In terms of the individual, Gautama Buddha specifically praised those wealthy persons who acquire their wealth through diligent effort and by righteous means, and who spend their money for wholesome meritorious purposes. He praised virtue and benevolence over wealth itself. It is important to instill a sense of values in contemporary people so that they recognize that it's a source of pride to accumulate wealth through effort and honest means, and to determine the use of wealth for doing good deeds. Praising people simply because they are wealthy, by considering that what they have committed merit for the good deeds in the past and previous lifetimes, and by failing to consider the causes for that wealth in that lifetime. It's incorrect from the perspective of Buddhism in 2 ways. First, it does not accord with the praise bestowed by Gautama Buddha on those wealthy persons who are mentioned above. And second, It does not involve wise and complete assessment of causes and condition, expresses for the causes and condition in the present life, which have most direct relationship to the person's circumstances, should thus be given more importance. Past karma can only act as an initial foundation, say, of providing physical attributes, mental aptitude, quickness of mind, and personal disposition, which supports actions in this lifetime. Granted, past actions play an important role for being born into the wealthy family, but even here, Gautama Buddha did not mark such a fact as particularly praiseworthy, because the general principle for Buddhism is that it's not glorifying or overly praising a person's family or status of birth. Gautama Buddha praised wholesome actions, which are the causes for the individual to receive such a desirable result. Being born into a wealthy family is in itself a boon, a gift. There is no need to add to this by praise. According to Buddhism, such a birth is seen as startling capital, which gives such a person a good opportunity or even an advantage over other people in making progress in this life. The results from past actions have come to fruition. The person has reached a new starting point. Gautama Buddha praised or criticized how such a person applies this starting capital. In general, Gautama Buddha praised or criticism focuses on whether one generates wealth through honest, righteous means or fails to do so, and on how one then conducts oneself in relation to such wealth. Gautama Buddha did not praise or criticize wealth itself or rich people. Rather, he praised or criticized rich people's behavior. In terms of society, Buddhism teaches that material wealth is the support for life. It is not the goal. Wealth should thus facilitate and prepare people for living a virtuous life, for performing good deeds in order to realize higher levels of spiritual excellence. Wherever and to whomever riches arise, it should benefit all human beings and be conducive to their well-being. Following this principle, when the individual becomes wealthy, all people are enriched and the entire society prospers. When a good person acquires wealth, his and her community also acquires wealth. Such a person is like a fertile ground in which rice flourishes for the benefit of all. A wealthy person can feel satisfied, honored to receive society's trust and to act as the delegate for society in sharing of wealth to support, nourish fellow human beings, and to provide them with opportunity for true growth. On the contrary, if some individuals become more wealthy, but society as a whole deteriorates and the suffering of other people increases, this indicates that there is an improper conduct in regard to material wealth. The generated wealth does not become a supportive factor, which is the true purpose of wealth. Before long, there will be unrest in society. In the end, either the status of those wealthy members of societies or the structure of society as a whole will be unsustainable. Members of the wider community may remove the wealthy and influential individuals from their position of power, establish a new system along with new executive for the allocation of wealth, which may be an improvement or worsening of the situation. In any case, there exists this truth that if people conduct themselves incorrectly in relation to material wealth, which arises for the benefit of all, wealth ends up harming and destroying human nature, human beings, and human society. In terms of the state or a nation, Buddhism recognizes these important aspects of material wealth. Poverty is the form of suffering. Poverty and deprivation are critical causes for crime and wrongdoing in society, as it is related to factor of greed. It is the responsibility for the state or of the political leaders to care for and allocate funds to the poor and to ensure that there are no destitute people in the country. To address these issues, various measures are required, which are often specific to the circumstances. You see, to provide citizens with opportunities for making an honest living, to create jobs, to allocate funds and other means of assistance according to the teaching of the four virtues, making for national integration, and to prevent immoral or unrighteous activities like exploitation. In this sense, the state should consider the reduction of the absence of poverty as a better measurement for success than increase for wealthy individuals in that society. The absence of poverty is the result of social management that does not neglect the spiritual development of the people in the society. You see, in terms of economics and politics, it is frequently asked what sort of economic system or government best conforms to the principles of Buddhism. Basically, this is not a question that Buddhism is required to answer. At the risk of stating that one can respond that any system that is applied in harmony with Buddhist values and principles is valid. Economic or political systems should be analyzed according to how they are practiced. An analysis which changes or is modified as a result of environmental conditions related to time and place. Here it should be reiterated that the purpose and the true benefit of material wealth is that it acts as the support for human beings in coordinating their lives to enable them to live together peacefully, to perform material deeds, and to realize higher levels of spiritual excellence. Thus, with wealth manifests for an individual, society as a whole benefits and all people will prosper. Whichever economic or political system effectuates such a wholesome outcome is in harmony with Buddhism. Obviously, examples of social systems are connected to specific temporal and regional factors that are following. When Gautama Buddha established the monastic community, the Sangha, which is distinct task and objective, he set down a discipline limiting the monks' personal possessions to 8 requisites, other possessions belonging to the community as a whole. In relation to the lay community, who at that time in Bharat or Jambutta Dipa in India, observed 2 forms of governance. Gautama Buddha taught the condition for prosperity, aparihaniya dhamma, for those republican states, and for those states governed by the quorum. He taught the imperial observances, sakkavati vata, for those states governed by the monarchy. These accounts demonstrate that how the Buddha Dhamma is not merely a philosophy or an abstract teaching, but rather a practical teaching which is connected to people's active within society and to real life circumstances. The teaching need to be applicable, relevant, and beneficial to people's daily lives. If one wishes or waits until one has completely finished establishing a so-called ideal political system, the superiority of which one can never be exclusively or conclusively proved before people are able to experience happiness and well-being, how can one escape from hypothetical notions and credulity? In the case where both republics and monarchies exist, Gautama Buddha found ways to benefit those people living under these different political systems. In the case of a republic, Gautama Buddha suggested ways to strengthen and secure the people's mutual endeavors. In the case of the monarchy, he encouraged the rulers to recognize that prestige and power should be tools for benefiting the people, and for self-gratification and self-indulgence. In the period of King Asoka the Great, when the system of the monarchy reached the end, the king Asoka adhered to the Buddhist purpose of governance while ruling to the country, as is conformed by dictum carved into what Asoka's pillars. His Majesty the Supreme Emperor Asoka, He who looks with kindness on the world, loved by gods and devatas, does not assign great values to his own honor and prestige, unless he desire these with this objective in mind. Both in the present and in the future may people listen to my instruction with devotion and practice in accord with the righteous way. This was written on his pillars. When people have understood the gist and objective of Buddha's teachings related to economics and politics, the detailed task of determining which system truly conforms to Buddhism rests with scholars of these systems to debate. Similarly, if people wish to think up new system of governance, which improve upon pre-existing ones, that is even better. But these matters go beyond the preserve of this book. That's the end of chapter 17.9. In the middle of page 1657, Buddha Dhamma,